going to show you how to get started with AutoCAD. First thing you want to do is find your AutoCAD icon. On this computer I'm running a version 2014, but yours might be slightly different. Check the dock on your computer, or you can just do a search for AutoCAD. It's probably 2014 or 2015 that you are running. When you click it, it does take a little while to open, particularly on the older computers. If you get a screen like this that asks you what to do, you're under the Create menu, and this highlighted file right here that says acad.dwt is where we always get started. So you can click Open, and there may even be a box down here if you're seeing my screen that says Display at Startup that you could uncheck so that you don't have to do that every time. Alright, so I'm going to show you a few things about getting around the program, and the thing that you need to notice the most is that there's a ton of stuff here, but you don't need to know about 65–70% of it. We don't even get to in the course, so don't be too scared. So some things to notice is that this center area with the grid is the drawing area. Excuse me. And the drawing area is where we do all the drawing. So that's where you draw shapes and lines and arcs and 3D objects and 2D objects and all of that. You might notice, and if I minimize this a little bit better, you can see way down here, as I'm moving around the grid area, you can see some numbers in the lower right changing, and that's your X and Y and Z values. Now you may not have heard about Z before, but Z is what makes things three-dimensional. X and Y you probably have heard from math class, X1, Y1, and that's shown to you right here with the X and the Y. X goes horizontal, Y goes vertical, up and down. Left and right for X, up and down for Y. So up here in the top left-hand corner is the tool set. And the tool set is helpful because this is where you actually can draw things. So if you don't know what something is in the tool set, you can just leave your mouse stuck over something like this one here, and it will tell you what it is. This one's the line tool. So I'm just going to click it to show you. I'm going to click line. And then on the very bottom of the screen in this little tiny box, and yours might actually be stretched out larger than mine is, there we go. This is called the command line. And the command line is always the place, if you get stuck, this is always the place where you need to look, because this is what the computer program is asking. What do I do next? What do I do next? You have to tell it what to do. So in this case, it's asking me to specify the first point of a line. So I'm just to show you, I'm going to click a few places on the screen, and you can too, and you can continue to draw kind of line segments. Okay. If you want to get out of the line tool to do something else, if you want to get out of any tool, you hit the escape key on your keyboard, which is in the top left-hand corner. So if you do that, you'll be out of the line tool, and you can see the command line just says command now. All right. Now, in AutoCAD, there are 2 or 3 ways to select something. So let's say that I want to get rid of some of these lines. Okay. If I click and drag from left to right, you'll get a box like this. And the way this box works, and you can kind of see them highlighting as I go over, it will select the things that fit entirely inside the box. So right now, only the 2 lines on the top would be selected, even though I'm crossing more lines. All right, and if I let go, you can see that they're selected. I can hit the delete key on my keyboard, and then they go away. All right. If I want to select everything that the box crosses, I can go from right to left instead. And your screen may look different than this when this happens. But when you do that, anything that gets crossed, so in this case, all of the lines, will be selected. I can hit delete there, okay? Except for this one down here, which was not being crossed. Now, if you make a mistake, which will happen in the program, if you make a mistake and you want to go back a step, Command Z is the place on your keyboard that you want to type to get you back. So I'm just going to type that here in this little box, Command Z, okay? And that will take you back step by step by step. And that's incredibly small, so I'm going to make that bigger for you, just so you can see. Okay, so Command Z will let you go back a step, so let me try that right now. Command Z, which is kind of funny because that will actually undo the last thing I did, which is make the Command Z large enough for you to see it. So that's kind of silly for me to do. Under the Edit menu on the top, there is a Redo. If you didn't mean to undo, you can redo, so that's really helpful. Okay. Um, you can also select on objects just by clicking once on one part of the object, so I'm going to delete that line as well, and I'll leave Command Z up there. Okay. So the toolbar, you may have noticed that I came up to the top of the toolbar while I needed to type this, and this gray box that looks like it has a rectangle in it, this lets you change your tool sets. Okay, so I was in drafting mode, or you're probably in drafting mode to get started. Annotation mode is where you label things. You do dimensions. You can put labels like this and titles on. It has a lot of uses. And then there's a third one, which we'll get into when we get into 3D, called modeling, which lets you do three-dimensional things. Okay, so to change between them, you just click up here, and you switch to the one you want. So we're going to switch it back to drafting, so it's ready for your next assignment. In addition to this tool palette over here, and the command line down here, and the drawing area over here, down here on the lower right is this other space that's called the status bar. And the status bar lets you turn on and off things that might be helpful to you as you're drawing and designing. So down here, if you look, there are certain things that are gray and there are certain things that are blue. When it's blue, it's turned on, and when it's gray, it's turned off. So you can hover over each of these and see what they are: snap mode, grid display. Okay, but probably your grid display is on. So I'm just going to turn that off just to show you what that does. So I just click it once and it goes off, and now I don't have a grid on the screen. I can click it again to get it back. All right, and there are some other things that may or may not be on. Another thing that you should know about that kids, I always forget to tell students, and they say, "Why did you tell me that?" There's a little hand, like a white glove here. If you click on it, it's called pan. If you need to move your drawing around the screen, you just click and drag, and it will move the drawing around the screen. You're kind of stuck in the pan mode for a little while until you do something else, so you might have to hit escape to get out of pan mode for that. Okay, there's also a zoom. You can zoom on your computer by just taking two fingers on your trackpad and pushing up or pushing down, and that should let you zoom wherever your mouse is centered. Okay, but if you would prefer to zoom sort of like this, okay, but if you prefer to zoom in a different way, there is a zoom magnifying glass here, and you can either click to zoom, or if you want to click and drag a box around an object you want to zoom in on, it will click and click again, I guess. It will zoom in on that particular area. Okay, and there are other ways to zoom that we'll cover later. Okay, but this is just getting you around the program. So in the tool palette, getting back here for a second, there are certain tools that have a little tiny white triangle in the bottom right-hand corner. Like if you go to line, and then you go right to the right of line, there's one called 3-point. And if you look really carefully, I don't know if you can tell from my video, but really carefully beside 3-point arc, there's a little tiny triangle pointing down and to the right. That means you can click and hold on that tool, and there are other options. So these are all the ways that you can make an arc, okay, if you know the angle and the starting and the ending. Okay, so there's a ton of different ways. We won't go over them now. Okay, but there are other tools that do this. The circle has a lot of options for it, okay? You may have also noticed that there's a little triangle pointing directly to the right. This is called a flyout box, which means there are more tools in there. So if you click on it, there are a whole bunch more tools in there if you wanted to use them, and we will eventually use some of those tools, but if you can't find something, you might try the little flyout part. So there is a menu on the very top of the screen, and I don't know if it will show in my recording. I think it will. And that lets you find all kinds of other things. The good news is, in this program, some things are in multiple places, so it doesn't really matter if you are familiar with it in one spot. It might also be in another spot for you to get to. So not to worry about that. Okay. So we talked about hovering over tools to know what they are. We talked about how to switch the tool palette. We talked about how to check out the flyouts. We talked about the X and Y. By the way, this thing on the bottom of the screen is called the UCS, which is the Universal Coordinate System. Okay, and it's the X and Y axes from your math class. You will have to label your drawings when you do them so that we can be sure that it's yours and not someone else taking your stuff. So it makes it much easier to identify. So the easy way to do that is to go up to the tool palette, switch from drafting tools to annotation tools, okay? And then there's one that's an A, not the ABC, that's spell checking, but there's one that's just an A, okay, and you click on it. And if you click where you want the corner of your text box to be, and then drag and then click again, okay, then you can type in here, and you're just going to type your name, and you might, it's up to you if you want to include the date or the name of the drawing or the assignment. So that's up to you. Once you hit enter, or once you come up here and hit save, it might look really tiny. Like, see how small that got? So I'm going to zoom in on it. I'm going to move closer. I'm going to click once on it, and this is kind of annoying, all right? I'm not going to lie. If you want to make this text bigger, you have to click inside the box, double-click inside the box. You have to highlight the text, okay? And then up here, there's a height of the text box up here on the text editor, okay? And right now this is set for 0.2. You don't have to go crazy on this to get it to show up. So I'm just going to put 0.1, and then I'm going to hit enter, okay? And then it really makes that zoom in quite a bit more. It makes the size of the text bigger, and then I have to hit save, okay? And then you will see that that is quite a bit bigger. I can click this, and I can pick it up and drag it around the screen, I think. Oh, yep, there we go, if I grab it by the right spot, okay? So there's lots of different ways to deal with text, but that's, I think, the easiest way to resize your text. If I find a different one, I will let you know. For the purpose of passing in work for me, you're going to design some things, and when you design those things, the way you hand them in to me is you're going to take screenshots of them. So screenshots on a Mac involve 3 keys. So it's Shift and Command and then 4. So if you hold down, whoops, Shift, Command, and 4, this is what happens. Shift, Command, and then I'm going to tap on 4. And then my mouse changes. It's a little hard to see against this background, but you can click and drag a box around what you'd like a picture of, and you let go. And then you might get a camera sound if you have the sound turned on your computer, and that would allow you to take your drawing and post it. So that means that that drawing shows up on your desktop, and if you look on your desktop, you'll see a drawing that has the date and the time, which is a pretty good way of identifying when you took it and keeps you organized. So speaking of organized, it would be a good time for you to go out to the desktop of your screen out here and go up to File and do a new folder, okay? And I'm going to drag this folder over here, and you are going to want to rename your folder so that you can have your stuff all ready to go. So you can just put CAD drawings, okay? That way if you need to put something in there, like this CAD drawing here, you can just have it and you'll know where it is. And that way when you go to save stuff, and I'll show you how to save, you'll have a place to save it. So if you go to File, and you can either go to Save or Save As. I'm going to go to Save As. And it's going to ask me where do I want to save this, okay? And I can name it Drawing 1. I would not, some students hurry and they do this and they just kind of put in a title. It makes it very, very hard later to find a file you're looking for. So I would just describe it. So I'm just going to call this one Practice, okay? Or you could call it Drawing 1 or Doorknob or whatever we're designing. And then right here where it says Where, you can find on the desktop, you can find the folder that we just made called CAD Drawings, okay? And then save. And now you've saved your picture, you've saved your file in case you need to go back and make changes, and you have figured out the basics of AutoCAD. Let me just check my notes and make sure there isn't anything specific that I needed to tell you. No, I think you're pretty much ready to start your first lesson. Thank you for tuning in.